If you have any members of my audience that really only knows Toku stuff through review content, you're probably not that familiar with Sentai's films, and they come in three varieties. The 30-minute to 40-minute long The Movie movies, which are placed as part of a double feature with another film. Since Kamen Rider's revival, it's usually been the related Kamen Rider film, but are frankly most of the time just normal episodes with a bigger budget.
The second type are the Versus films, which are theatrical-length team-ups between two series, that while Go Ranger vs. Jack was the first, Ohranger was the one responsible for getting them to regularly begin appearing as direct-to-video features.
At least before Toei had started to release them in theaters, beginning with Go Ohranger vs. Geki Ranger. And they're the ones people usually hound over as proof that every Sentai is actually in its own distaffed universe, when even Toei has repeatedly shown and stated it isn't, because of the continuity errors they contain. But nearly every movie related to a property Toei made a TV show out of has continuity errors and placement issues. Even the indisputably canon ones.
And lastly are the Versus Super Sentai specials, which Kakuranger was actually responsible for coining when they did a short team-up with the preceding 5 teams in Super Sentai World.
Those only show up on average every 5 years, and have a track record of being terrible. Have I mentioned Toei really sucks with their anniversary events most of the time?
But yeah, despite Toei's actions later tanking Ohranger's ratings, they had still greenlit a movie for Ohranger, in part to celebrate the series' anniversary as mentioned before. It wasn't the first Sentai theatrical feature, and they'd been experimenting with bringing the concept back since Die Ranger, using special events as leverage, and this film premiered on April 15th at the 1995 Toei Superhero Fair. Meaning, timeline-wise, it was written and shot before the disasters that would cause a retooling of the show.
And this was in fact part of a triple feature alongside Juko Beef Fighter's own movie, and another film we've discussed before. Mechanical Violator Hokkaido. I wish I was making that up. You know, for kids!
Continuity-wise, the film is said to fall between episodes 8 and 9, though it was released between episodes 7 and 8, and otherwise doesn't conflict with the show's canon. Hell, episode 31 calls back to this movie's events when Bacchus recreates one of the monsters seen here for another scheme. We open out in a desertous part of Japan on Bulldont Studios.
And just by playing that clip, I'm bound to get a copyright claim from that company.
Where Bulldont has set up his own scheme. He's going to make a movie!
Sir, this is the script for robots.
Actually, no, this is a recurring plot Toei uses that... Wait.
Holy crap, I've not reviewed a single series that makes use of this type of plot. But Toei does this annually!
Essentially, it's a behind-the-scenes story where the relevant Sentai, Ranger, or Rider group get involved in a movie's production. Hijinks ensue as they play with filmmaking tropes. He plans to use camera drones, which would later be recycled back into the main show as well, to record the antics of various machine beasts and the victims they torment, collecting them either through straight-up abduction or advertisement the robot camera birds just drop in the streets. That should only really convince the stupid or desperate to try out for this, since this is being advertised openly as a production by Paranoia.
Because of course.
This movie, by the way, was written by Shozo Uehara, who when he scripted it made it not quite in contrast to the running show thematic, as remember, this was before Toei had them dial back the war emphasis for more sillier shenanigans, but I get the idea that even before that mandate, the old guard writers didn't like the idea of the war plot, as they ended up doing a lot to not integrate or explain away the change in direction, but get the hell away from it and back to the stupid child antics everybody by this point hated. And one way of doing that was to shove things into horrific war plots that'd be inappropriate.
And really, on this point, a disguised casting call would have gotten them their victims and made more sense for a covert operation than something that immediately tips off your enemies!
The Ohranger pursued to counter this plot and save the unawares victims once they're tipped off, leading them into the studio backlot and... Hitler clown?
I need an adult.
It explodes for some reason, as the kids are led into the studio and given 3D goggles.
Because this was originally a total immersion kind of event, so of course the worst gimmick would be there. I can't watch 3D movies.
And thus they're whisked away just as the team get inside, with them then springing Bulldont's trap.
Sir, this is the script to Battlefield Earth. Okay, I guess that Battlefield is a battle of the bands. No, wait, that can work.
The Ohranger end up split up, fighting various movie genre robots. Some shown to in fact be humans Bulldont has turned into his toys through limb replacement and brainwashing, while other stage props likewise come alive to once more turn Momo into a dumbass in distress.
Really, that's what she does for most of the series.
Goro and Juri face the faucet monster, but are blasted with water from one of the faucets on his crotch.
You know, for kids!
But they get away from them as the various devices begin to malfunction, all while the children in a tour bus finally discover the danger they are in as they are taken through a war zone using live ammo.
You know, for kids!
The Ohranger managed to catch up, using horses stolen from other Baranoia forces.
How was a robot that has to weigh in the tons riding a horse? Unless... are the horses robots as well?
They try to protect the kids, but as the deception is completely collapsed, might as well Michael Bay this bitch.
Sir, this is a script for an inconvenient truth.
I'd also say there's another citation of Noboru Sugimura not knowing how time works, since the Earth formed 4.5 billion years old, but again, written by Shozo Uehara, so that doesn't apply. This segue, by the way, is just Bacchus and Hysteria trying to be in on Bulldont's movie madness.
Preferably dressed as Wes and Lord Humongous.
But Bulldont shoves off their attempt to inject some singing.
Now, if this were Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog, then that would be something.
They prepare the climax of Ohranger's defeat by beginning to murder the extras they'd conned into the film, and the Ohranger were too busy focusing on the bratty kids to realize, oh crap, we're actually surrounded by other victims. But from the death of his dolls and the exhaustion of his remaining bit players, Bulldont decides his toys aren't useful as they are.
It's almost as if wanting humans as slaves is a stupid idea.
So, he plans to cyberform them.
You know, for kid... Okay, you get my point on this. Shozo Uehara's defiance of writing the war plot was to take a silly and fun filler concept, inject some self-insert kids so the audience members could see themselves as part of the film, and then sought to traumatize the hell out of them while making the heroes look like fools. It does not work as presented, mainly as because they had to make the Ohrangers incompetent to facilitate that aspect of the plot, and seemed like they were unnecessarily going to these extremes to beat the point in. I think you mean spectacle! I feel like that's half of Toy's producers talking.
The kids lay down in defeat, submitting to death with their final words being filmed, only for the Ohranger to return and save them at the last minute from being augmented to death. All of the lesser mechanical monsters amalgamate into the main machine beast, Machine Punk, who absorbs the brats, which only just barely slows the Ohranger down from beating it, as it's large enough for Goro to dive in and pull them out. Ohranger Robo summarily smashing that steam train. Barry's going to be pissed.
Sir, these are scripts to Terminator sequels. Though I think your wife would like playing the Terminator TX.
And to wrap this movie once more on the kids instead of the actual protagonists of the show, the girl finally calls out the boys on the bullying of the youngest of their number that had been seen throughout the film.
Because Toei was at the time producing Sailor Moon. That's the joke. There is no other reason for that line to be in there.
Ohranger the movie isn't terrible, but it is horrifically padded out with how it drags on with everything, despite little happening to fill its runtime 40 minutes. Say what you will of Mechanical Violator Hokkaider, its triple feature running mate, but it used its time more effectively for its story.
Well, that, and it got a director's cut, which added in 30 minutes to its runtime, but shows how poorly lopsided the emphasis was for the three films.
And as was the problem with other series of the period, it overfocuses on guest characters we really do not care about over the main cast that are otherwise left as two-dimensional, when this movie's events could in some way impact them or have its events play off of aspects of their character. In its defense, the film itself is pretty harmless. There is a bit of fun with the genre play with the backstage filmmaking, but if you don't want to waste your time, just watch the Power Rangers Zeo episode Invasion of the Ranger Snatchers. It's pretty much this movie without the annoying kid subplot and cut down to half its runtime.
And thus it ends up being a far, far better execution of such a plot, as was quite common in the Zordon era seasons with regards to their Sentai counterparts. You know what the sad thing is? Bulldont probably would have made a better movie than a certain art house film I could name.
私の道を切り開く。
独りよがりなムードだ。ダ作のオーラが出まくってるぜ。
Next time, however, we'll get to what was actually responsible for tanking the series' viewership. Actually, you know what this movie really needs?